that this may well be the most consequential case in the history of humanity.
What is Vanuatu doing at The Hague? Well, the Pacific Island nation, alongside 97 other countries and 11 organizations, is bringing their arguments before the International Court in a record-setting case to hold nations responsible for their impact on our climate. And right now, polluters are fighting vigorously to maintain the status quo. This is an escalation of strategy by more vulnerable nations who feel that the COP conferences have done insultingly little to provide them the resources they need in the face of climate change. With COP29 finishing in Azerbaijan, vulnerable nations' hopes for aid and climate justice are fading due to the slowing progress and waffling by developed nations on how and when the promised aid packages will be provided.
The current emission reduction commitments of states, even if fully respected, will see a catastrophic increase in temperature. For many people, including in Vanuatu, the prolonged and systematic failure of the COP process has cost them their well-being, their cultures, and even their lives.
The resulting opinions from this legal case will define who is responsible for the harms caused around the globe by climate change. This represents a landmark step in holding nations accountable for the impacts that they cause that reach far beyond their own borders.
Coming to the International Court of Justice, we are trying to find another way to get climate action that we need, that the IPCC says we need, that science says we need, but which so many countries, through political convenience and the power of fossil fuel lobby, refuse to take action on.
Vanuatu and its associated parties say that this is a step towards realizing climate justice for low-emitting countries like their own. They are effectively arguing that high-emitting countries should be held responsible for the impact of their emissions. These impacts are not yet accounted for in economic or legal systems around the world. And polluters are not happy about this prospect. The world's largest polluter, China, has urged the court to defer to the COP process and not issue an opinion, saying that agreements reached there will effectively address all of these grievances brought before the court, despite recent history proving quite contrary. Saudi Arabia took a similar angle in their arguments against an opinion being issued, taking things a step further by claiming the International Court would impair climate progress by defining obligations, stating that the Specialized Treaty on Climate Change provides no basis for the court to issue true limits on fossil fuel extraction and production. This statement is effectively irrelevant to the legal question at hand, though, as the ICJ ruling on broad national pollution responsibilities is not a ruling on the practices of private industry. While advisory court decisions are non-binding, they provide a moral and legal guide forward for the General Assembly. These decisions have undoubtedly shaped international law and guided policy in the past, so there is hope in these nations that this will prove an impactful path toward survival. This case specifically is focused on harms caused towards geographically and developmentally vulnerable nations. The scope of these questions, however, is a little bit more broad, asking the court to rule on the impacts not only in the present, but also to future generations.
As judges of the World Court, you possess the power to renew the power to help us course correct and renew hope in humanity's ability to address the greatest challenge of our time. And you can do this simply by applying international law to the conduct responsible for climate change.
A decision in this advisory court will shape future discussions in the UN General Assembly and guide nations' decisions, litigation, and policy, both international and national, going forward. Any opinion issued by the court is final, with no avenue for appeal. However, non-compliance cases are brought before the UN Security Council, which has the power to hold nations accountable or leave them be. They also have the power to veto any non-compliance case brought against their own nations. Interestingly, the two largest polluters in the world, US and China, are on the Security Council. In any case, the opinions issued here, expected to come in 2025, will be a monumental moment for the fight for climate justice, and also a pivotal point for the future of these vulnerable nations.